Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nurhana Zafirah binti Zulkifli and I'm from Tehsil 1. So today, I would like to present to you about my multimedia presentation kit, which is about storyboarding. So, first thing first, what is a storyboard? A storyboard is a visual representation of a story or concept often used in filmmaking, animation, or storytelling. It consists of a sequence of illustrations or images accompanied by descriptions to outline the progression of events or scenes. So, what is the objectives of writing a storyboard? The target students for writing a storyboard is Year 6 students. The objectives of writing a storyboard is the students will develop the ability to create a storyboard by organizing ideas visually and textually to convey a story effectively. Next, let's moving on to the students' proficiency levels for writing a storyboard. The first one is beginning. The student can identify the basic components of a storyboard, as example, visual frames, sequence, and also captions. The student also need a guidance to arrange story ideas in a logical order. Then, student need to create simple illustrations with minimal details. Lastly, student will need to write short captions that may lack clarity or connection to the story. Next, let's move on to the second one, developing. Student can organize the story idea into 4 to 6 sequences with some guidance. Student also can create basic illustrations that show key moments in the story. Then, student also can write captions with some description of characters or action. Lastly, student can begin to connect the sequences in a logical flow, but transitions may be unclear. The third one is proficient. Student can independently organize a story into clear sequences such as beginning, middle, and end. Student also can create detailed illustrations that align with story's events. Student also can write complete sentences to describe actions, dialogue, and emotions in each frame. Student also can ensure the smoothness transition between the sequences. Then, the last one is advanced. Student can demonstrate creativity and detail in both illustrations and also captions. Student can add expressive elements such as sound effects or emotional expressions. Student can write story vividly to engage captions that enhance the story's depth. Lastly, student can create a clear and engaging story that is easy to follow and visually appealing. Now, let's move on to the skill to develop in writing a storyboard. The first one, student can develop the story structure. As example, the beginning of the story, middle, and also the end of the story. The next one, student can improve their visualization in drawing. Student can turning their ideas into drawings or maybe simple visuals. Then, student can learn how to write a better description. Student can write a clear and concise captions to describe the actions and also emotions in the story. Lastly, student also can improve on sequencing. Student can arrange story events logically and also smoothly when writing their own storyboard. Now, how to actually write an actual storyboard? The first one, students need to define the goals and also objectives in writing the storyboard. Students need to identify the purpose of the storyboard. As an example, tell a story or maybe teach a concept of something. Then, students need to consider intended audience. Lastly, students need to keep the content or story age appropriate. Then, students will need to develop script and also narrative. Students need to divide the content into a clear and manageable chunks, such as scenes and also steps. Students need to break down the script into key scenes and ensure each scene focuses on one main idea or action. Students will need to plan transitions between scenes and flow of the story and also the story's pace. Then, the next one is students will need to choose a storyboard format. The first one is traditional hand-drawn, which is the classic approach using paper and pencils to sketch. The next one is digital storyboards. Students will need to use software, for an example, Storyboard Pro. Then, animatic, which is the usage of rough animation to create moving version of storyboard. But students are preferably to use the traditional hand-drawn technique to sketch their own storyboard. Then, students will need to create a visual layout. Students will need to use grid boxes for illustrations and space underneath for text, as example, dialogue, descriptions, and also instructions. Students need to keep the layout simple, maybe 4 to 6 panels per page for the students to make their own storyboard. The next one, students can sketch the frames. Students can draw simple stick figures, shapes, or symbols to convey the story. It could be hand-drawn or digitally. So students can sketch each frame based on the script, focus on setting, characters, and also actions. Lastly, students can sketch the characters in details, focusing on expressions, body language, and clothing detail to convey personalities and also emotions of the characters in their own storyboard. Moreover, students will need to write simple texts. Students will need to use short, simple sentences or phrases. Students will need to highlight key terms or concepts in maybe bold or maybe different colors. Students can include dialogue or narration if it's relevant. Students also can add interaction in their own storyboard. Students can include questions, prompts, or spaces for the students to draw, write, and participate. Students can use prompts such as "What happens next?" or maybe "How would you solve this?" to encourage their own critical thinking in writing the storyboard. Students can also add some annotations and details using the table that are provided in the slide. Furthermore, students can review and revise their own storyboard by exchanging their storyboards with friends and also teachers. They can gather the feedbacks of each other's storyboard to ensure the storyboard is clear and consistent and flows smoothly. They can evaluate whether the storyboard can convey the emotions and messages intended. Last but not least, students can finalize and share their own storyboard with each other. Students can create polished drawings for each frame to ensure the clarity and detail. Students can use digital tools or hand-drawn. Students will need to double-check annotations and the information is present and clear. Lastly, students can share their own storyboard with friends and also the whole classes. Now, let's move on to the example of storyboard that was created by me. So, this is the example of storyboard that was created by me, titled The Brave Little Squirrel. I divided the storyboards into 6 scenes, which consist of 4 sentences for each sequence. I divided the storyboards into 6 sequences, which consist of 4 sentences for each sequence. I also visualized the pictures for each sequences to represent the 4 sentences for each sequence. Now it's time to look at the story. The Forest Introduction. In a green sunny forest, there lived a little squirrel named Sammy. Sammy was happy and loved to jump between trees, collect acorns, and watch the river sparkle in the sunlight. One day, he noticed something strange. The river wasn't flowing as quickly as it used to. "Why is the river slowing down?" Sammy asked, feeling worried. All the animals in the forest came to look and saw the same thing. The problem appears. The animals followed the river and found the problem. A big pile of logs was blocking the water upstream. "If the river dries up, we won't have water to drink," cried the rabbits. Sammy felt scared too, but he didn't want to give up. "I may be small," he said, "but I have an idea." His friends watched as Sammy's tail twitched with excitement. The brave plan. Sammy climbed the tallest tree in the forest to get a good look at the logs. From high above, he saw how they were stuck together like pieces of a puzzle. "If we all help, we can move the logs and save the river," Sammy shouted. The animals cheered and quickly got to work. They found twigs, vine, and sticks to help with the big job. Teamwork saves the day. The animals worked together. The beavers chewed through the smaller logs, while the deer pulled the heavy ones with vines. Birds flew above, guiding everyone, and even the tiny ants carried twigs away. Sammy ran everywhere, helping and cheering on his friends. At last, with one big push, the last log rolled away, and the river began to flow again. The forest celebrates. The forest was full of laughter and joy. The river sparkled and the animals danced and sang happily. "We couldn't have done it without Sammy," said the wise old owl. Sammy blushed and said, "It wasn't just me. We all worked together." The forest felt alive again as the animals celebrated their teamwork. A new lesson learned. From that day, Sammy was known as the bravest little squirrel in the forest. The animals learned that even someone small could make a big difference. The river flowed stronger than ever, reminding everyone of their own hard work. Sammy felt proud and happy, knowing he could always help his friends when they needed him. The end. Now, let's look at the moral of the story. The moral of the story is that teamwork and courage can solve big problems. Even the smallest individuals like Sammy the squirrel can make a big difference by staying brave, thinking creatively, and inspiring others to work together. When everyone helps, challenges can be overcome and success becomes a shared celebration. Last but not least, let's look at the reflections that can begin by writing a storyboard. Writing a storyboard can help students enhance their own writing skill. It also can increase students' creativity in writing, and last but not least, it can refine students' visual skills. Well, I think that is all from me today. Thank you so much for listening. Assalamualaikum and bye!